So Miffi Maxmillion is a spiritual program coordinator for the FPMT Center in Brisbane, Australia, called Langri Tangpa Buddhist Center, and is here with us via Zoom from Brisbane. She leads many of the beginners classes there and is the center umze, or chant leader at Pujas. Miffi left behind a thriving fashion and costume business in Melbourne when her mother, who started and ran Langri Tangpa, became ill in the late 90s. Packing her bags for 2 weeks, she's still there 25 years later. Miffi was brought up a Buddhist, had the great good fortune to play with Lama Yeshe as a child, and his hookah compassion sustained her through the many rebellious stages of growing up. She readily admits to watching far too much TV and is an avid New Yorker magazine reader. Venerable Robina has known her since she was a little girl and describes her as a joy, a delight, refreshing, down to earth, and thoroughly steeped in the Dharma. Welcome, Miffi, to KTBC.
Wow, what an introduction. That's fantastic. I'm going to do my very, very, very best to live up to it. I'm really thrilled to be here. There's just something so special about meeting fellow Dharma brothers and sisters from across the ocean, all part of Rinpoche's mandala. It's just such a thrill for me, and how easy it is to actually connect this way. So yes, we're going to have a little adventure, 3 classes on the 3 higher trainings for dummies. So not because we're dummies, just after the book about the dummies. I had Buddhism for Dummies, which was a fantastic book, not just because of the cartoons, but it's like really legitimate Dharma. And I like that approach of just easing into being a beginner, and that way you can relax and you can enjoy discovering things. You can enjoy not knowing things. So taking this attitude of 3 higher trainings, which is a pretty intense topic, kind of what I'm hoping to be able to do is just be the bridge, just the bridge between our everyday humdrum kind of busy time poor life into the Dharma. And I've found that once you just have a little introduction, then the whole realm of the Dharma opens up. But getting that little introduction and kind of the steps between just getting over almost a cultural difference, trying to figure out how does Buddhism fit into the modern world, how to kind of translate it. That's a real barrier right at the beginning. So that's my little niche. And I really, really hope that it can be an introduction and a way into the wealth of the Dharma. So the 3 higher trainings, for dummies, it's these 3 higher trainings, they don't necessarily come naturally. So just like parenting, you know, everyone expects it to come naturally, but it doesn't necessarily come naturally. And learning on the go can be really fraught. It can be incredibly stressful, and you can make big mistakes. And if we were able to get some training, how much better would things turn out? So these 3 higher trainings, we can learn them, we can cultivate them. And the minimum that they'll give us is being able to make this life better. But they can give us so much more, not just for a good ordinary life, not just the life of a materialist, but with these 3 higher trainings, they can, with these skills for life, they can lead us all the way to liberation and enlightenment for all. They're the ones. So how extraordinary. Why just stop at, you know, just hoping to make the beginning of this life okay? So they're called higher because of that, because it's not just for this life. It's not just for a materialistic approach or just for feeling good now. It's the really big picture. The goal of personal liberation and enlightenment for all. So let's embark on our amazing journey. Eloise is going to lead the motivation prayers, which is so important to have because that's what makes them higher trainings. So go for it, Eloise.
Okay. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct. Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. To the founder, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the one gone beyond, the foe destroyer, the completely perfected, fully awakened being, perfect in knowledge and in good conduct, Sugata, knower of the world, supreme guide of human beings to be tamed, teacher of gods and human beings, to you, the completely and fully awakened one, the endowed transcendent destroyer, the glorious conqueror, the subduer from the Shakya clan, I prostrate, make offerings, and go for refuge. This ground, anointed with perfume, strewn with flowers, adorned with Mount Meru, 4 continents, the sun and the moon. I imagine this is a Buddha field and offer it. May all living beings enjoy this pure land. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kamniyatayami. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings. I go for refuge until I'm enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Supreme Assembly. By the merits I create through listening to the Dharma, may I become a Buddha in order to benefit all sentient beings.
Thank you, thank you. Thanks, Eloise. Okay, so I'm going to get the little screen share up of mine for this class because it has this picture of the analogy for the 3 higher trainings, which I found incredibly useful, and we'll come back to it again and again. So these 3 higher trainings, they're the foundation that everything can be built upon, our entire progress through this life, to make sure that we don't end up in the lower realms, to also make sure that we don't end up just in the form and formless realms, but actually achieve liberation or enlightenment, a really big goal. And so the analogy is that our the 3 higher trainings, ethics, concentration, and wisdom. So the ethics are focused on the body, and they're the foundation and the support for everything that we do. So ethics, they're our core strength. Really, really important. And then concentration, they're the 2 strong arms that are informed by love and interconnectedness. So just like Venerable Rabina so often says, the 2 wings of the bird, the wisdom and the compassion. So the concentration holds both those wings, 2 strong arms, supported by the ethics. And then wisdom, that's the axe, and that is the sword or the axe that can cut through the very root of all of our problems. If we cut them at the root, they're gone. So instead of just trimming each leaf one by one as it pops out, this problem, solve it, this problem, solve it, and it just goes on interminably. As we know, we get rid of one set of problems and then we get another bigger set of problems. So this axe, it cuts the root of suffering, the root of all problems, right there, right at the base, all of them in one go. But an axe is very strong and very powerful. So we need to know how to wield it without getting into trouble. So those three, the core strength of ethics, being held by the strong concentration, the two types of concentration, wielding the wisdom, and it cuts the root of suffering forever. So you can see these three skills, they're really important now, but mostly they're important for our long-term well-being and for the long-term well-being of all living beings, because they are relying on us. So we're going to start with ethics today. It's the easy one. Well, it's easy to get our head around, but a little tricky to put into practice, but it's fairly straightforward. So how to figure out what's right, what's wrong, how to figure out if it depends, how to figure out, am I just justifying something away, or is it really a circumstantial thing and it depends? And we can start with a quote from Nagarjuna, which is just a corker. If a container is broken, how can it hold anything? If our ethics are broken, how can we develop positive qualities? And this is such a wonderful quote, isn't it? Because if our container is broken, how can we hold anything? So if we just think about all of the people in positions of power in the world, whether they're doctors, whether they're priests, whether they're politicians or bankers, a lot of these positions of power benefit society. That's what makes society go, you know, teachers and doctors and nurses and everything. But the moment any of those people step out of line and abuse someone, or the moment, you know, we find that a teacher has been favoring someone and cheating on exams, or the moment we find that a priest has been abusing children, it doesn't matter whatever good that person did, it's gone, isn't it? All the goodness. And we see that with many institutions. If there's any form of abuse or corruption, once you find out about that, or if it happens to you, it doesn't matter what good that institution's done. All that good leaks out. The container is broken. So there's really, it's not an optional extra, this one. If we want to be able to contain all of our good qualities, they have to be contained in our ethics, in our conduct. We've got to walk the talk. And so ethics is about literally embodying our values, which is great. That analogy is so wonderful. That so we not having a double standard, because it's very easy to say, these are my values. Oh, I've got family values, or all sentient beings, yada, yada, yada. And we can say it whatever we like, but it doesn't matter what we say. And actually, it doesn't even matter what we believe. It actually just matters what we do. So what we do is the ethics, is making that really strong container, and it supports everything else. If we don't do or act what our values are, all the rest of our qualities are very, very weak. And even if we do anything good, even if we manage to actually help somebody or whatever, it's tarnished. So whenever you find out about various rorts and corruption, it tarnishes everything, doesn't it? And if you've had a bad experience, say with a teacher at school, it tarnishes all teachers, all schools. And it makes it very difficult for us to get any benefit. If we don't have the core strength of ethics, then it makes it very difficult for us to follow through, to actually put into practice our good-heartedness. We don't necessarily have the strength to see things through, let alone we may accidentally end up harming others. If we do develop our ethics, though, then whatever we do, we'll be able to be successful with it in one way or another. Even if the actual thing doesn't turn out, it doesn't matter, because we've created this incredible environment around us and a whole network of support and goodwill. And so it opens the door for everything else good to happen. from a spiritual point of view, having ethics means that whatever our Dharma study, whatever we do, whatever effort that we put in, we won't become unhinged, we won't get lung, we won't degenerate, we won't have a double standard. It really keeps us safe and strong. And from a Dharma point of view, that's essential, because it's no good, as we know, just knowing stuff, just having wisdom without the rest of it. It can be quite dangerous. So if we have ethics, then all of our efforts that we put into Dharma study will actually flourish, and they'll be like a medicine to our afflictions. I will also say that when we live in degenerate times, when we're surrounded by people that are cheating and lying and just out for themselves, if you manage to practice any ethics at all, it counts double. It counts more than double, because it's hard. So in the time of the Buddha, when everyone was practicing ethics, when everyone, where it was the cool thing to do, where young men left home to have their adventure, to become an ascetic and become liberated or enlightened, you know, that was the thing. That was their gap year. You know, if that was the whole society, it was very easy to practice ethics. But in our day and age, it's quite tricky. So anything that you manage to do, it counts. It counts way more. Okay, so what I thought we might do is I'll kind of set the scene a little bit, and then please, whenever you have questions, just raise your hand in the reactions, or else put something in the chat, and Eloise, you can monitor it, because I can't necessarily see the chat all the time, but please let me know, or physically raise your hand and wave, and Eloise can jump in and say there's a question, because those of you who've been to my classes before know you have to jump in, and please do have questions when you do. I can see you're all nodding, right? So that's good. Do we have any questions yet? Anything at all? Questions, comments, nothing? Oh, okay. Oh, but I'm seeing all your lovely faces, so that's good. Okay. Well, let's have a look how we get our ethics, and then you'll have some questions. Right. So one of the things, ethical conduct, practicing ethics, means, number one, we refrain from harm. We restrain ourselves from making things worse. So it's harm minimization, which is a really wonderful way to think about it, because there's a sliding scale, and we just do the very best that we can. So this also means that ethics is actually a quality of mind. It's an intention to refrain from harm. So we have a deep wish to refrain from harm, to restrain non-virtue, everything that creates unhappiness and complications. In Australian parlance, we call it keeping yourself nice. Keep yourself nice, dear. Means restraining from harm. So how do we do it? We abandon all the harmful physical and verbal actions. So that's something that we pretty much can control. We can definitely control our physical actions. But the main way that we interact with the world, of course, is verbally, and that's a bit trickier to control, but it is doable. Then when we do that, at least we stop making things worse. And then we can work on what's going on in our mind, which could be really catastrophic, but at least it's not spreading. The contagion is not spreading. So how do we abandon harmful physical and verbal actions? Well, one of the things to recognize is we can't legislate for it. More and more rules in society isn't going to be the thing that does it, because actually we can't legislate for morals. We can't legislate for good-heartedness. We can't make people be nice. All we can legislate for is behavior, is to guide behavior. And that is quite a tricky thing. So before we go on to that, when we legislate for behavior, and we noticed this with all the various rules and things that came in with COVID, that you had to be very skillful of what you put out there as a rule because of how people would respond. And so sometimes you had to put out there a mandate and a rule and go really heavy so that people's behavior would change. And then other times people got tired, COVID tired, and they didn't want to abide by the rules anymore. And so then you had to really relax the rules so at least some of them were kept. So it's a very circumstantial thing. And what can happen is it can be quite counterintuitive. So for instance, the classic thing that happens is no one wants a safe injecting room in their neighborhood. The idea, the optics of having all these junkies in injecting heroin in a safe place, it just looks wrong. No one wants it in their neighborhood, and it looks like you're condoning drug use. That's the optics. But the actual behavior, the result of having a safe injecting room, of course, is that all of the risky behavior just comes to a halt. Crime stops, diseases stop, all the emergency ambulances and everything, the incredible cost to the health system, all of that stops. All of that is saved. But no one ever votes for something like that because the optics are wrong. So this is terrible. If you want to have, and we see it again and again, if you want to have really helpful ethical behavior, sometimes you have to legislate for the bad behavior, for a safe injecting room. Like with prohibition with alcohol, when we banned alcohol use went through the roof and it was uncontrollable. But if you harness the sale of alcohol, then you can harness the behavior. So this is why ethics is so tricky, because you can't legislate for the ethics, you can only legislate for the behavior. Was there a comment or a question? Oh no, just the instructions how to put your hands up. Okie dokie. Right, so that's the beginning part. Then when we are practicing ethics, the main motivation for us has to be the determination to become completely free from cyclic existence. So the motivation can't be for our reputation. We want to look like we're a good Buddhist, or we want our friends to think we're good. We want to have that kind of status. It can't be for bargaining with karma. If I'm very, very good, then I hope these good things will happen. It can't be through fear and panic. Oh my God, I can't do anything because I don't want to go to hell. I mean, that's kind of good, but it's not really sustainable. It's a really basic kindergarten level way of keeping our ethics, but it doesn't age well. And it can't be, we can't have ethics because we think we should, through guilt, because that's an external imposition and also not sustainable. So the long-term sustainable motivation is a real understanding that of cyclic existence and suffering, an understanding of the nature of our mind, and therefore an intuitive understanding that liberation and Buddhahood are possible. They're built in as a possibility. And once we understand that, then we get a natural determination to become free from cyclic existence. And the first step of that is to practice ethics. So then this wonderful thing happens. If we're not motivated by guilt or fear or bargaining or status, what people think of us, if we're actually motivated from an understanding that ethics helps us, ethics brings short-term happiness and long-term happiness. It's just a cause and effect result. It's a behavioral thing. If we understand that, keeping ethics isn't a drudge, it becomes happiness itself. It becomes something we want to do, not something we should do. And this is what I found really important, the key for me, because doing something because you think you should out of that negative, it works in the short term, but not the long term. It works for kiddies in the short term, threat of, being punished or whatever, but doesn't in the long term, does it? And doesn't for us either. But once we actually practice some ethics and we feel the benefits and we're happier and the people around us go, wow, you've changed, you're nice to be with now. Keeping ethics becomes happiness itself. So how do we get started? Keeping vows, actually taking vows, citing our name, saying it out loud, reciting after me, that kind of thing. Whether it's marriage vows, citizenship vows, refuge vows. I'll go into these a little bit more in a moment. Keeping a professional code of conduct for whatever occupation that we're in. And keeping to the laws of the land. So that's the beginning of keeping ethics. So we can have the benefit of this, whether we're Buddhist or not, but especially if we're Buddhist, we'll have a huge benefit. So keeping any vows like marriage vows, scouts vows, citizenship vows. I learned a new term yesterday for this in psychology. When you actually write something down or you say it out loud, it has a power to it. It's like a life hack. Rather than just thinking, oh, wouldn't it be nice? If you actually say it, and if you say it in front of witnesses. And what it's called is a counter-habitual implementation intention. Isn't that awesome? So I'll say it again. This is a psychological thing. Okay, so it's got to be real, right? It's in Western psychology. Counter-habitual implementation intention. So, you could have a refuge ceremony at your center and call it the counter-habitual implementation intention ceremony. Because that's what it is, right? And just by saying it or writing it down, it holds us. It's the container. And it makes it easier for us to stick to it. So don't underestimate the power of a refuge ceremony, of taking vows, any form of vows. That's why we do it. So in a marriage ceremony, you have witnesses. In a refuge ceremony, all sentient beings are our witness. It's really powerful. Then we have our professional code of conduct. So many times, Lama Zopa Rinpoche has said, become an inner professional. But even just being an outer professional, we have to practice ethics. So there's all sorts of codes of conduct. If you're a university lecturer, you're not allowed to have an affair with your students for X amount of years, or at least while they're there. I don't know what the amount of years are. If you're a psychologist, you can't have an affair with your clients until X amount of years after they've finished therapy. This code of conduct, it's all built in. If you're a kindergarten teacher, if you're a doctor, a nurse, we all expect a professional code of conduct of being treated equally, regardless of whether they like us or not. So it's there, it's built into our society. And we can do it, and we expect it of everybody, don't we? Even the humble checkout chick, we expect to have a professional code of conduct and treat everybody equally. So that's where we can start. Questions, comments? Anything at all? Okay, so far so good. Okay, so then I thought I'd tell you a little story. I've got an illustration for the story. So normally how we get our ethics is from the outside, from the watcher. So I put up a couple of famous pairs of eyes here. So one, the oculist from The Great Gatsby. And it's so funny because I've always read it as the occultist, but it's not, it's the oculist. So in The Great Gatsby, backwards and forwards across the divide of the two worlds, the whole thing is being watched. you know, that huge billboard just watching. So there is something very powerful about being watched, ethical scrutiny, when we feel we're being watched. Just by having eyes there, a watcher there, we subliminally begin to scrutinize our ethics. And I think that's why in The Great Gatsby, those eyes there, because they subliminally make us question the ethics of everything that's going on. It's hardwired into us. We don't even have to put any effort in to start questioning the ethics. It just starts happening. So there was this wonderful experiment that they did with water cooler at work, and you'd have your snacks and things in the little boxes, and it was an honors system about you know, $2 or whatever for the chips or the chocolate. And so, of course, what happens mostly is a whole lot of IOUs at the end of the week. The chocolates are gone, there's no money in the tin, and it's just IOU. So they did this experiment to see. Then they put a nice smiling photograph of someone saying, you know, thank you. And they put it in front of the lolly box. And at the end of that week, there was just one IOU and all the rest of the money was paid, because just having a watcher. So this was very interesting. So then this is why when you go into a shop, they have the mannequins at the front, not to display the clothes, but so that you feel you're being watched. The moment you go in the shop, you are watched. And so then it minimizes shoplifting. I think also at the front of some pubs and various other places, they'll have a stand-up cardboard life-size cutout of somebody. And again, it's there right at the front so that you subliminally know you're being watched. So the bad behavior is really curtailed without you even knowing that that's what's going on. So with this experiment with the honor system with the box of chocolates at work, they started thinking, well, what if we just put just some nice smiling eyes, you know, not probably they didn't put the oculist or the Buddha eyes, but just a photograph just of the eyes of a face. And that worked as well. Then they tried, well, what about just a smiley face? Just a smiley face above the chocolates. And even then, just a cartoon. People stuck to the honor system, no IOUs. So at the moment, our witness is external. It's there, it's subliminally hardwired in, but it's external. And when the witness is taken away, when the smiley face or the eyes are taken away, all bets are off. It's like Lord of the Flies. Everyone just takes the chocolates and puts in the IOUs, or doesn't even bother, just puts in a button or some rubbish. So this, can you see where I'm going here? It's quite dangerous to have an external source that forces us to do ethics, because it means that when that is removed, all of our good conduct falls apart. And we saw this with COVID, didn't we? When we're at home and now suddenly it's just ourselves and we've got no one watching us. We don't sit up straight anymore. We don't look after ourselves anymore at home. All of those things that relied on having witnesses fell away. In fact, all the social bonds of society disintegrated. And that's why now everyone's so fractious and so immediately nasty to each other. And so the amount of road rage and checkout rage and everything is just exponentially exploded, because those social bonds have disintegrated, but also the watcher effect of having others around us to keep us nice is gone. What's left is our own ability to keep ourselves nice. And whoa, not so strong, is it? So what we want to do, at least, is develop an inner watcher to internalize our ethics. So part of like why when we go into a Buddhist center and there's the Buddha's eyes there. So now it's not the judging eyes of society or the oculist. Now it's the Buddha. It's our Buddha nature judging us. So this is one way of bringing it inwards, a step inwards. Our Buddha nature is the context and is keeping us nice. And so it's without that judgmentalism and without that guilt. It's actually encouraging, because a Buddha is a mirror of our potential. It's what we can become. So there's a huge amount of encouragement in that one. So then the Buddha eyes, they can become like they're our conscience. They're our inner watcher. And what the Buddha eyes can do is wake up our inner sense of fairness, which we all have. We all have innately compassion, kindness, empathy, and a sense of fairness and justice. We know when something's not quite right. And it really affronts our whole being when we see injustice. So we can start waking up that inner sense that is there as a core quality in our being. It's just, it hasn't been developed, and it's not strong because it doesn't come from within. It's imposed from outside of us. And once that imposition is gone, our ethics are gone. All right, how are we going? Okay. You're all very quiet. I thought the Americans were chatty. Oh, I'll have to throw something. Oh, good. I was going to have to say, I was going to put in something really controversial just to get you all talking. Eloise, what is it?
Well, thinking about taking vows. And I've always thought of vows as being sort of a gate. That sometimes you're going to break them. And sometimes you know you're going to break them. But there's this gate that makes you think, I'm about to break my vows, and I'm going to, for whatever reason. But that gate was there to make you aware of what you're about to do.
Yes.
A vow. And to me, that's what's so very, very valuable, is at least being aware of that I'm about to do something that I, really, I don't think I should do. But I'm aware of that action.
That's brilliant. That's right. Because whilst we have an intention, it's quite amorphous. But if we have something written down, it's there in black and white, like the gate. And if we cross over it, there's no disputing it. We've crossed over it. So that, yes, that is an absolutely brilliant way to think of it. And so that's the power of it. Because I've always thought, why can't we just have a heartfelt intention? Why do we have to have this external ceremony, taking a vow, la, la, la? And I'd never, like an external rule kind of thing, I never quite got it. But learning that it is hardwired in there, that once we say it, then it helps to hold us to it. It's just like this, the gate. It, in a way, it brings our attention to it, and it's very, very powerful. So it's like a life hack, but it's a Buddha life hack, Buddhist life hack. Yep. Yeah, great analogy. So now we can go into, well, when we first talk about ethics, this was my response. Well, who says I can't do that? Who says? You've got to convince me. So what's very, very amazing is that there are actually two types of misdeeds. Natural misdeeds, universally recognized actions that cause harm or suffering, and proscribed misdeeds, which aren't inherently bad, but they can lead to destructive behavior. So one's natural, it's universally recognized, doesn't depend on belief, doesn't even depend on whether you're a human or an animal. And the other, it's prescribed, it's imposed by law, and they're quite different. So just figuring out who says I can't do that, just sorting these two out in my mind, I found immeasurably helpful. So the natural misdeeds are universally recognized as misdeeds because they cause suffering. It's just really, really simple. They cause suffering. No one wants to have their stuff stolen, whether you're a human or whether if you've got 2 dogs or 2 cats, one cat doesn't want the other cats. You know, they don't want their dinner stolen. Dogs fight each other, don't steal my bone. Like, no one wants their stuff stolen. No one wants to be betrayed or lied to, misled. So this kind of natural misdeed, it's nothing to do with belief. It's nothing to do with I subscribe to this or these are my values or anything like that. Everyone naturally recoils from violence and aggression. It's not like we have to think about it or believe it or tell, you know, it's just a natural thing. So this is something we can work out for ourselves, and we can work out, it makes me unhappy, it makes others unhappy. And we know when we've done it wrong because we feel bad, we know. The proscribed misdeeds are often cultural. They can be cultural gaffes, like using the wrong hand to give a gift. They can be proscribed things like, you know, we're not supposed to hug the monks or the nuns. They're supposed to have physical distance from us. And we might not know. It might be, oh, so nice to see you, and give them a great big hug. Shoes on or shoes off. If we break the laws of the land. If we're a drunk driver or if we're busted speeding. So we had one really lovely lady in our class. She was in her 70s, so enthusiastic about Buddhism, meditation, everything. And she came in one day, she said, oh, Miffi, I'm in real trouble. I got busted for speeding. And she was speeding on her way to her mindfulness meditation. So she got away with it because she's such a sweetie. But if we heard, for instance, that any of our teachers were busted for speeding, that would cause us to doubt everything about them, wouldn't it? Because you think, wow, you can't even control that. How are you going to teach me mindfulness, restraint, wisdom, all of those things? If we don't abide by the laws of the land, we can get into trouble, and we can bring ourselves and the Dharma into disrepute. And this is a tricky thing because some of the laws of the land are unfair, and we have to work to change them. So just a few years ago, I don't know how it is in America, but in Australia, finally we got marriage equality. Finally, 2 men are able to marry, 2 women are able to marry. Finally, you know, when you think about it, marriage existed way before Christianity. You know, the union of 2 people. Who said it has to be a man and a woman? And who says even who or what a man or a woman are? It's a spectrum. But of course, that's not what changed the law. What changed the law was vote for love. You know, that cuts for everything, didn't it? So we have to work to change unfair laws, to be able to protect people, to keep people safe from harm. What we can do as Buddhists, we have a checklist. Woohoo! I like a good checklist. A lot of my life has been influenced by this fantastic book called The Checklist Manifesto by Atul Gawande, a great doctor and surgeon. And so he revolutionized surgery in America, actually, for minimization of infections and things with surgery. But it was an uphill battle. The beauty of checklists, we've got the things not to do with our body, speech, and mind. So as Venerable Robina says, if we manage to refrain from these, we are already an amazing human being. We're already a success as a human being. So refraining, the ones from the body, refraining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct. And by and large, this is easy for us because it's circumstantial. So in Australia, there's very little gun violence. We don't have any conscription into the army. We don't have gang wars or anything like that. So not killing human beings is very easy. In fact, it's so easy that people think, yeah, well, duh, of course I wouldn't. But as we know, in various places of the world, it's endemic. Human beings kill each other all the time, and you're stuck. If I don't kill this human, they're going to kill these humans. What am I going to do? So in those circumstances, so very, very difficult. But don't underestimate, if you're in a circumstance where it's easy to not kill, fantastic. Bring it to consciousness like a gate. You know, take the vow to not kill, and then it becomes powerful. Avoiding sexual misconduct, well, that's easy, but our entire movie industry is based on what happens when you don't. Avoiding stealing. Again, there's a whole spectrum from just taking someone else's stuff to cheating on your taxes to not paying bills on time. There's a whole spectrum, but these are fairly straightforward, and we can do them. And we can do them because it makes our life easier. And I know I started abiding by refraining from killing, stealing, and sexual misconduct because I was at a Buddhist center. And I thought, I can't bring the Dharma into disrepute. That was the thing that did it for me, that regardless of whatever my own motivations are, I can't be seen to be doing anything wrong because it will bring the Dharma into disrepute. Speech, avoiding lying, divisive speech, harsh speech, you know, really aggressive, harmful speech like that, or meaningless speech. Well, that's trickier, and that's because it's our modus operandi every day. And then the mind, avoiding covetousness, just wanting what others have, you know, that tight, miserly mind. Avoiding malice, commonly known as plotting revenge. And who doesn't have thoughts of revenge in some way, even on the very little ones, of thinking, oh, I wish I had have said that. You know, after an argument, you go back and you replay it in your mind and you say all those things. Malice, whoa, so toxic. And the most difficult one, avoiding distorted views. So we can just start on that by avoiding being prejudiced or bigoted, and then try and develop equanimity. So with these, first, we refrain from the negative. Number one, harm minimization. On a very basic level, even if others do these things to us, we don't mirror it back. We don't give like for like. If someone's aggressive to us, we're not aggressive back. So we don't mirror it back. We don't retaliate, at the very least. And that's half the thing done. We haven't made the world worse. We've stopped the whole chain reaction. So refraining from the negativity is super, super important. Don't underestimate it. It counts as a thing. Even though it's a negative thing, you know, a minus, I'm not doing something, it counts hugely. And then we've got to engage in the positive things, which I'll get into because that's inspiring, how to actually embody our ethics. And we do it so that it suits our ability, our circumstances, but the intention is there. So I wanted to.
Miffi, there is someone
Yes.
with a hand up.
Oh,
And
okie dokie.
there's also a request in the chat box for you.
Okie dokie. Can you read out the chat for me?
It says, can you please talk at some point how we can help someone who has caused great harm and is new to Buddhism, how they can correct their karma?
Oh, yes. Well, if they're already along the way, that you correct your karma by the 4 opponent powers. It's easy. There's nothing so bad. There is nothing so bad that cannot be purified and corrected. So the 4 opponent powers are just amazing. But if they haven't quite got to that and they're not sure that they've done wrong or done bad, it can't come from this external moralizing, can it? It's got to come from a realization of the harm done. And then a natural regret arises. So that's much trickier. And that often can't be done through telling someone, because no one likes to be told you're wrong, you're bad. It's got to come through talking to their Buddha nature. So by having, like Lama Yeshe used to do, that's why everyone loved him so much, because he talked to your Buddha nature. He talked to all the good things about you, like, of course, dear, you can do it. And he didn't talk to your negativities. He didn't give them any air whatsoever. He talked to your goodness. And then that could have been the first time that you ever felt your goodness. And you kind of go, oh, wow, I feel so good with Lama Yeshe. Why? Because he's talking to all your good qualities. That's who he's relating to. So if we want to help anybody who's caused an amazing amount of harm, we have to find their Buddha nature and their good qualities and just focus on that. And it's like open up some space for that so that they can hop into there, and that becomes their center. And the negativities aren't the main dominant thing. So that takes an enormous amount of skill. And of course, how can we do that until we can do it for ourselves? That's why we need ethics. Ha ha. Barbara, you've got your hand up. Yes.
Hi, Miffi. Thank you for your teaching. The conflict that I am having is, I am pro-choice. And
Yep.
you made a reference to changing laws when they are unfair. The laws in this country are becoming more restrictive and more restrictive and more restrictive.
I know, I've been seeing.
But the conflict that I'm having is, from a Buddhist perspective, abortion is killing. Now, I would typically be out there really trying to keep the laws as they are. And I'm just having a conflict with that.
Absolutely. And that's, I mean, yes, I totally get it. So this is why you can't legislate for the morals. You can only legislate for the behavior. So if you want the least amount of harm, you have to be pro-choice. Because if you give safe abortions, and included in that you give, family planning, contraception, and education, then you have less babies dying and less mothers dying and less families that are dysfunctional with abuse and trauma that goes through the generations. And ironically, the way to do that is to try and legislate for safe, free, legal abortions. So that's the counterintuitive thing that makes it so difficult. And you just have to look at history to see just prohibition, and there it is laid out for us. So the intention that we have is harm minimization, but how we go about it is complex, and it's behavioral. And you've got to be able to really sit down and take your time with people. So I could imagine many lamas would go, how can you be pro-choice? But actually, if you sit down and you look at history and how it plays out, it's a consequentialist thing. If this is the result that you want, how do we get it? How do we get it? By having safe, free abortions. It's hard, isn't it? This is the tricky thing about samsara. So you really got to have the courage of your convictions here. And the overarching principle is to protect others, to protect life, and really to protect life, all lives. And, the amount of effort and resources that have gone into growing a woman up, if that woman dies from an illegal abortion, the amount of waste, the amount of harm, the amount of heart sore is so much more, because it's 30 years, say, of all of that support and input from other living beings. So the harm is infinitely more, actually. So I hope that goes some way to helping.
It did, absolutely. It's not so black and white. It helped me see from a Buddhist perspective a different way of looking at it.
Yeah, so I must say I haven't seen anywhere in the scriptures about prohibition and abortion and things like that. So this is my opinion and how I've worked it out. But I think it's infallible. And I'm happy to keep on talking about it.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, I've got to say it is my opinion, and probably Lama Zopa Rinpoche may say something very, very different, and he could say something very, very different because he's directing us emotionally and spiritually. But I think for a society where the society is not Buddhist, the way His Holiness the Dalai Lama deals with all of these questions is that you have to have a rule for society that is inclusive. And then each individual makes their own decision. So he did this with vegetarianism in the monasteries. He said the monastery is vegetarian, but each individual can cook in their room whatever they want. So that is a very pragmatic way of working your way through the rules. So we have to be pragmatic. Okie dokie. So we've got through the checklist. Oh, wait. I was going to read something from Yangtze Rinpoche. So this book, Practicing the Path, a fantastic Lam Rim book. So accessible, so immediate. Especially if you're new to Buddhism, this is the one, rather than say Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, which is very dry. This is the same topics, but great to read. You can't put it down. So Yangtze Rinpoche, as we know, teaches at Maitrapa College in America. So this is, and part of the notes was an excerpt on the 3 higher trainings from this book. So he says, the training of living in pure ethics is a practice that we should be able to manage right now, today. It's not beyond our reach. Many people in the Western world these days are afflicted with mental sickness called depression. Depression happens when the mind is overcome by a very strong sense of craving for a certain object, for a certain person, a certain experience. And as this craving grows and its wishes are not actualized, aggression arises in the mind. Aggression, aversion, frustration, wish to retaliate. And the combination of these two, the craving and the aggression, gives rise to a sense of hopelessness. And in some cases, the person may become suicidal. In other cases, the person may become deeply depressed. The root of this mental state, this hopelessness, is a combination of extreme attachment and anger. When we are already caught up in these emotions, applying the ultimate antidote of wisdom that realizes selflessness is far beyond our ability. We're just too overwhelmed, our head's under the water. The best method to handle such an experience, therefore, is to prevent it before it occurs. To prevent the depression, the hopelessness before it occurs. And the most extraordinary, supreme way we can choose to prevent it is to live in the pure joy of ethics. In fact, living in the pure joy of ethics is the best antidote for all of the gross delusions that arise in our minds. The mental sickness of depression can also arise from a deeply rooted sense of discontent, combined with the limitless desires and expectations with what life will bring us. Living in ethics can help us to liberate ourselves from unrealistic hopes and assumptions, and it can enable us to appreciate our lives without being trapped by desire. So who knew there is a direct line between depression and not having very strong ethics? So not in a judgmental way, but by living in ethics, we are protected from hopelessness, from depression, from aggression, from all of those things. It's like a safety, it's like a force field that protects us. So let's see how it does. How it actually protects us. So this is on the positive side of things. We've got our body, speech, and mind, the actions, what we do, how we embody, literally, how we live it out. So physically, we refrain from those negative ones, that checklist, and then what do we do instead? We protect life in whatever way we can. So we protect life, say with the abortion debate, by giving education, by supporting young mothers, by giving contraception, by having really effective adoption, by supporting people in their decision, whichever decision it is. So protecting life across the board, by making people feel that or recognize that life is worthwhile, not hopeless. So you wouldn't even want to have an abortion. So all of these things protect life. And there's so many ways we can protect life. Even if it's just sharing food, a cup of coffee. Then instead of stealing, sharing our things. Sharing food is a big one. It's the make or break. If you go to a Dharma center, what you want is to be offered a cup of tea and a bicky, isn't it? If you go visit your friend and they don't offer you anything, it's not quite right. So just, it doesn't have to be a big deal, but just this idea of sharing, giving good things to the op shop, and sharing your time as well. And even if you're a bit resentful, you don't want to talk to someone, you just set aside, okay, I'm going to talk 5 minutes. I'm going to share my time wholeheartedly with them. And instead of cheating on your partner, staying faithful, creating harmony and supporting relationships. Speech. So instead of lying, that's true, but that's not enough, is it? It's not enough just to tell the truth, because the truth hurts. So we need the rest of skillful speech, which is being harmonious, creating harmony with our speech, not just hoping to be harmonious, but creating it, speaking harmoniously. Gentle speech, so not harsh truths. The harsh truths need to be said gently or with humor. You know, like Geshe Zopa teaches, he's always got this amazing giggle, and the more serious something becomes, the more wonderful his giggle is and the more soft he becomes. So the gentleness. Also useful. So having a purpose to our speech instead of just yabba, yabba, yabba. Giving compliments, singing the praises of people behind their backs. Instead of bitching behind their backs, making an effort to sing their praises behind their backs. How amazing is that? So we can get started on all of these very easily. You just need a plan. And then the mind, okay, so the activities of the mind, to try and, instead of covetousness, instead of just wanting what everybody else has, and when they have what we want, kind of resenting it, being content with what we have and rejoicing. Well, at least someone has it, and I'm so happy they do, because I know it would make me happy, and may it make them happy. Kindness instead of malice, instead of plotting revenge. And as His Holiness the Dalai Lama says, be kind whenever possible. It is always possible. I mean, someone should make that a bumper sticker. And then instead of wrong views or distorted views, so we try and overcome our prejudices. See them for what they are. We've all got prejudices. Sexism, racism, ageism, it's all there because our mind naturally goes to difference. So see them for what they are, and then start winding them back, overcoming them. And how do we do that? By being curious instead of fearful, being curious about people who are different from us. It's so simple. And if we develop this sense of curiosity, our fear and intimidation falls away. The differences become quite superficial. We see what we have in common. And even with your enemies, you know, if they're driving you crazy, instead of just saying, "Oh, shut up," say, "Oh, how interesting. Tell me more." You know, it takes the edge off it. So it's some way to get started. This is how to embody our ethics. So it's not so hard. And in a way, we have a huge incentive because we all want to feel worthy, don't we? We all want to feel that we matter, that we have a place in the world. We need we crave the acknowledgement and appreciation of others. And so most of the time, how we try and get that is by telling others how fantastic we are, or making them respect us, or, you know, putting on a suit or getting an award and showing it off to try and get that. But actually, if we want to feel worthwhile, we have to do something worthwhile. We'll never feel it otherwise. Doesn't matter how many accolades we get or how many people tell us, no, you're good, you're a good person, you're okay. It's not going to stick. We're going to be filled with doubt, self-loathing, we'll disrespect ourselves and others, all of that, until we actually do something worthy, do something worthwhile. And then we'll naturally have confidence. So that's the thing, why ethics is joy, because we embody it, we actually start feeling good. And then not only don't we need everybody to tell us how fantastic we are, in fact, when people tell us how terrible we are, it won't disturb our mind. It won't mean our whole world comes crashing down. We won't want to punch them in the nose, because we'll know, no, these bits are good. And yes, you're right, these bits are terrible. You know, it's just like the nose on your face. Doesn't matter if someone says you have a nose on your face or not. You do. And if someone says, oh, you've got a pink or a purple nose on your face, then you go, well, doesn't matter what you say. I know what color it is. So it really, the thing about the activities, it's very simple how we embody it. And to be ethical, I mean, it's great if we can cure malaria, if we can give to the refugees, if we can do all of these things that overtly, obviously help others. But even if we're just at home by ourselves, we can still practice ethics. Even if we just got a really lowly office job or cleaning toilets or something, we can still practice ethics. We still have a professional code of conduct. We still have a professional code of conduct with the people that we live with. So, you know, there are the prescribed things that we do and the things that society recognizes as good things that we do. But then there are the natural good things that we do. So kindness is natural. You can't legislate for it. But when we have a good day, when all the stress is off, we are naturally kind. Human beings are naturally kind. Living beings are naturally kind. The only reason they're not is because they're traumatized by samsara. So I got concrete proof of this, believe it or not, when for a while I worked in a call center. And so I was one of those people that called you up at dinner time and wanted to do a survey about really stupid questions about cat food. That was me. Or the election, worse, whatever. And so when I first got that job, I was terrified. I just thought, oh my God, I'm just going to be just harangued and abused and suffer rejection over and over and over again. This is going to be awful. And I was really, really scared. I was scared about just rejection. Who wants to just dive straight into rejection of everyone hanging up on you? And this amazing thing happened. So in the time it took for me to dial the number, I'd had enough time to set my motivation. I couldn't do a big one. I just did a really small one, which was, may the person get off the phone happier at the end of the conversation than at the beginning. That was my motivation. And so built into that, of course, was this recognition, it's a fellow human being. And I, even though I'm going to put them through this terrible survey, I genuinely want them to be happier at the end than at the beginning, however that's going to do it, whether I'm going to crack a joke or whatever it is. And so what would happen was people would just do the survey. And I was like, over and over again, I had this amazing success rate, like 98% success rate. And it was just because I had this attitude in my mind of respecting a fellow human being. And most of the time you call people and they're just neutral. And when they're just neutral and you say, oh, hi, I'm wondering if you could help me out with a survey, they say, oh, yeah, sure, of course. It's just natural. Over and over again. And the few times that people said no, one was said, don't you realize we're having a wake at the moment? Everyone's crying, and they hung up. I'm like, oh, okay, so fair enough. It was, and then the other few times it would be when you'd hear there's arguments in the background. There's domestic violence happening on the other end of the phone. And that's when they would aggressively hang up. And the rest of the time, every single time, people just naturally want to help. So kindness is at our core. It is there. So we've got to develop our core strength. And of course, it's a universal language, isn't it? Kindness. Doesn't matter if we don't speak the same verbal language. Kindness, it's recognized around the world and interspecies. So shall we do a little meditation? We've got time, don't we? Or a little, just a little reflection. I'd like to bring this in just for our inner practice. We've got the external one, what we're going to do, how we're going to embody it, but now for the inner one. Okay, so just bring your focus inwards. You don't have to close your eyes if it's, especially it's nighttime and a bit late. Just rest your focus on just a couple of meters in front of you, and then just unfocus your eyes. Bring your attention inwards. And let's set a motivation to enhance peace and harmony in the world by developing equanimity in our own mind. How do we develop equanimity? A balanced attitude towards all beings. Equanimity, a mind of equal care for everybody. If we can do it, then we can create harmony in the world and eventually all the way up to liberation and enlightenment for all. The more we can develop equanimity, the less likely we are to fight, to be reactive, to be inconsiderate. And we won't just be flatlining, we'll be able to develop a sense of what they call assumed positive regard in counseling, where we have a natural affection towards others. Our natural affection is not hampered. So how is this possible? By developing equanimity. So let's give it a go. Imagine first your friends, those who you care for, that when something good happens to them, you're really happy for them. How, of course, you wish them well, you wish them all the good things, you do anything for them. So feel that warmth that you feel towards them in your heart. Feel it as a physical warmth in your heart area, that really nice feeling towards your friends, and feel that warmth radiate out through your whole body, and feel it radiate as joy and courage, clarity, strength, all of these wonderful qualities as golden light that's just glows through your body. And then feel how it gets so strong that it actually radiates out through all the pores of your skin like light rays coming through a lantern, through a patterned lantern. And feel those light rays of that warmth and love flowing to all of your friends, giving them everything they need. And then think of the strangers. So the people that you know, might be even people in this class, you can see their faces, you see their names, but you don't know them well. You don't know who they are. So they're still strangers. Might be people you work with or see on the bus. Might be people on the news. But as we draw our attention to them, we know that they have hopes and wishes, they have difficulties, they don't want to suffer. And if we got to know them, they would start to matter, just like our friends. Just by happenstance, we know these people, but not those people, but it could have been the other way around. So imagine that you have got to know them all and that they have become your nearest and dearest, and you understand where they're coming from and you wish them the best, and feel that love and warmth from your heart flow out to all of them. And then finally, we can bring to mind the people that we have difficulties with, the ones we don't like or that we're frightened of. They could even be dangerous and brutalized. Human beings who've shown you anger or aggression, or haven't even shown you, but shown others who you care about. And what we can understand is that no negative action comes from a happy mind. It all comes from fear and suffering. So with your X-ray vision, see behind the angry face to the suffering face. In your heart, you can also extend that warmth and love to them. They're far away, you're keeping a physical distance, but your heart sends them even more radiant, light, golden, loving kindness. And as it flows to them, it melts their angry face. It releases them from the bondage of their aggression and their ignorance. And that terrible aggressive crust falls away. They're liberated from their emotional bondage. And then now that you've sent this loving kindness to these three types of relationships that we have with all the living beings, amazing thing happens. Now that they're all glowing with love and warmth, that love and warmth begins to flow back to you, into your heart, becomes even more radiant, more energized, more filled with love and kindness. And that warmth, that light at your heart becomes stronger and stronger and stronger. And again, the light rays burst out from all the pores of your body to all of those beings, sending them everything that they need again. And as they transform, the light comes back to your heart again, as easy as breathing in and out. So then let's dedicate the merits of this very short contemplation to being able to transform our very existence into one of universal love and kindness, just by breathing. And that way bring all living beings to liberation and enlightenment. So I hope that was some way to get you started on an equanimity experience and how wonderful equanimity is, because it's not just flatlining, it's profoundly filled with loving kindness and joyousness. So when we're embodying our ethics, when we're in company, we watch our body and speech. That's what we focus on when we're with others. So when we're out in the world, that's our main focus. When we're at home, when we're alone, when we're in lockdown, in isolation, we focus on the mind. And that gives us the strength to support this watching the body and speech. Then in the time that we've got left, so then cultivating equanimity, developing this equal affection towards all. So we start with the love, the good feeling we already have. Got to start there. And then you expand it out to everybody. And of course, it's a wonderful experience, isn't it? Then we expand it to the strangers. So I love this photo because she's just saying, oh, meh, like, oh, whatevs. And that's pretty much how we feel about strangers until we get to know them. So we've got to color them in by thinking about them, finding out what we have in common. So we extend our love to the strangers, and then keeping them at a distance, we extend it to the enemies, the brutalized, destructive ones. So we don't harden our heart, because they're just like brutalized dogs. They're dangerous, but they're the result of karma and affliction. And within a brutalized dog, even brutalized dogs can be rehabilitated, and they only do it out of fear and craving and anger and all of the disturbing emotions, but they can be rehabilitated. So too can our enemies. So at least from our heart, in our mind, that's how we think about them. We see below the scary face to the suffering. How we act to all these three groups, most of the time we just spend time with our family who we love. We don't necessarily spend time with the strangers, and we try and remove ourselves from danger. Physically, it's a bit different, but in our heart, everyone close. Okay, so then the solutions, how to get started with the ethics, the meditation, that's one, working on our mind. Now, how to get started practically, day to day. How do we put it in practice? Well, number one, make it easier for yourself. friends with ethics. So instead of friends with benefits, right, which is the common one, friends with ethics. Make sure you spend time each week with people who are ethical, who are more ethical than you. So you can hop into their slipstream and just run along behind them, you know, like on the Tour de France, and they just get behind the wheel and whoosh, they're drawn along. Friends with ethics, we need them. Their good qualities will rub off on us. So we have to make a conscious effort to go and visit them or ring them up or go to a teaching or something like that, so that you get that experience. We've got to make it easy for ourselves. And this is one of the nicest ways to do it. Then, are we part of the solution or are we part of the problem? So we do have to become active in civil society. We've got to pick our battles. We've got to have a really good strategy, not just be reactive. But if we aren't active in civil society, when things are unfair, when laws are unfair, when education's eroded, if we don't say anything about it, we are tacitly agreeing with it. So, in a way, this is really difficult because we can't just sit on the sidelines and plead ignorance. If we do, we are agreeing with all the bad behavior. So we do have to become active in some way, and that's going to be according to our strengths and abilities. It just might be signing petitions or writing a letter, or it just might be growing up your nieces and nephews with a sense of fairness. But whatever it is, we have to be doing something. We've got to learn how to be incorruptible, and the best way to be incorruptible is to practice humility. So this is a great one, right? Because this is how we can protect ourselves from a double standard. So, you know, the double standard and the corruption creep in, where we start thinking, well, I'm special, so I don't need to abide by that one. You know, I'm special, so it doesn't matter if I'm late. Other people should be on time, but I'm really busy, and so I've got a reason. Or I'm special because I'm so stressed. I'm more stressed than everybody else, so I'm allowed to kind of let rip. So there's this double standard there where it's okay for us but not for others, and from that double standard comes in, that opens the door to abuse. That's why people in really high positions of authority that we put their trust in, like judges and doctors and priests and teachers, why they end up abusing others in such a terrible way is because of this double standard, thinking they're different. How do we protect ourselves from that? From Geshe Langri Tampa's 8 verses of thought transformation. I will always put myself the lowest of all. So it's this attitude, everybody else is more special than me. Everybody else has more reason than me. And it means you become incorruptible. You're safe. It's the best way to have 100% confidence in yourself. That you'll naturally not take a bribe, not be wooed by your stomach, all of those things, by just putting yourself below others. It's an amazing life hack. So that way we become incorruptible, and that way we save society, because the more power we have, the more danger we're going to be in. So we have to safeguard ourselves. In Australian terms, that's the one, keep yourself nice. Then you've got, what else? Oh, harm minimization. Not retaliating is powerful. And so how we do this is we recognize that no matter what, we're going to be safe to be around. No matter what, I can control my body and my speech. No matter what, when I'm with somebody, I know I will not punch them in the nose. And if you really take this on, you know that even if you're blind drunk or even if you're under the effects of anesthetic, you can trust yourself that you can control your body and speech, because it comes from within. And where does it come from? This intention not to harm. Very powerful. So it's given me a lot of confidence. This, you know, I've been at Lungery Tampa Centre for about 25 years. And one thing I can say is I've never got angry at someone. I've never yelled at them. I've not once in that whole time yelled at anybody or abused them. And that because I just drew that line with my speech. So I would button it. Yes, I am harsh and things come out wrong. Absolutely. And I still manage to offend people all the time. But I can confidently say I've never yelled at anyone the whole time, not once. And so that's given me confidence in myself. I can trust myself and I know I'm a safe person to be with. I might be a bit rough around the edges and I am so sorry for that. But on the basis, I am a safe person to be with. So I've seen the damage that can happen where in a Dharma center, someone has a bad day and they just say something mean. And you don't realize the power that you have, that can ruin not just that day and that Dharma center, but all of Buddhism for that person forever. It's really heavy. So harm minimization, you know, don't underestimate it. Oh, another one, catch out any spiritual materialism. So that's the one of don't just have your ethics for status, or that you don't want people to discover what a terrible person you are, or bargaining with the karma, or, you know, that we'll get good marks with the Buddha or anything like that. All of that materialism about spirituality. No, it's got to come from within, of understanding how it works. Proudly uphold your code of conduct, whatever it is, whether you're married, whether you're a citizen, whether you're a scout, whether you're a cleaner, there's always a code of conduct. And you can be proud of that, and you must be proud of that, because that pride keeps you to it. Wear your superpower cape of ethical standards, or as Yangtze Rinpoche says, your cloak of the vows, your cloak of conduct. So this is like putting on your inner professional. Get your inner professional on. So we may not feel like we can do very much at all, or that we've got much equanimity or much love or kindness for others. But if you put on your cloak of ethical standards, you at least act that way. And through the acting that way, you start to grow into the role. So it is a superpower. And it is that, what was that saying that I learned? It is the counter-habitual inflammation intention. That's your superpower, cape of ethical standards. Becoming the inner professional. As Rinpoche says, that's our job. We see what an outer professional is like, we can bring it in. So the becoming an inner professional, like just think of the people at the help desk at the airport, or the help desk for the computers. You know, so patient, assumed positive regard. Like my assumption would be, oh, what an idiot. But no, theirs is, here is a wonderful human being and I am here to help them. And of course, they're like the intelligently curious. They can know, they just don't know how to do this bit. So this wonderful assumed positive regard brings out the best in people. And that's what being an inner professional is about. That we can help others, even if they don't like us, and even if we don't like them. It just doesn't matter. We're going below that to this common human experience, and even below that to the universal experience of just life, you know, humans, animals, everybody. Oh, so before I do the summary, what questions or comments, anything about that, about the ethics, how to act? Nothing? You're okay? You're all well and truly ear bashed now? I've tried to shove it all in there. You sure? No questions or comments? Well, you know, if you have them, you've got next week to do them, because we've got a break next week. I can't come next week. I've got the 2 following weeks. So what I wanted you to do in the break was to figure out how you can internalize those the 10 virtuous actions. So how you can, you know, you've got the 10 non-virtuous ones to avoid and the 10 virtuous actions to start developing. And the easiest way to do it is just to try and change one thing. So it's like 1%, not 100%, not 50, not even 10%, just 1% change that you can make. So try and think of one thing that you could do for each of those 10, for, you know, the 3 of the body, 4 of the speech, and 3 of the mind. Even if you just think of one thing that you can do physically, one thing you can do verbally, and one thing that you can do mentally to change your behavior. That's all we have to do. If we just did 1% every day, wow. But even if we just did 1% every week, this is how to do it. It's very, very doable. So in summary, then, so we've got our joy of becoming a Dharma superhero inner professional. And in summary, then ethics. Ethics is our core strength. It holds everything together. It's that strength, embodying all of our values. It's no good just having values. We have to embody it. And it becomes the foundation for achieving everything that we want to do. So whether it's just living a good life, just this life, being a decent human being, whether it's achieving any kind of career goal, but especially for achieving liberation and enlightenment. Restraining harmful physical and verbal behavior, putting a halt on that, and developing our inner watcher. So that's for the mind. So our inner Buddha eyes, our innate sense of fairness, our innate kindness. So that sense of your wonderful Buddha conscience, the Buddha nature that sees all, that's who we develop. That real understanding of why ethics brings happiness. And then naturally we'll want to abide by our ethics. So the homework with just the one thing, and then before you get out of bed every morning, try and establish a non-violent attitude. So just think, whatever I do today, may I be able to help all beings. Whatever I do today, may I not harm, may I try and help and at least not harm. And then get out of bed. Simples. Okay, so Eloise, I'm so sorry I've gone over time. So would you like to do our dedication, lead our dedication prayers for us?
Certainly. Due to the merits of these virtuous actions, may we quickly attain the state of Guru Buddha and lead all living beings without exception into that enlightened state. May the supreme jewel bodhicitta that has not arisen arise and grow. And may that which has arisen not diminish, but increase more and more. And the long life prayers for our teachers. For His Holiness, the wish-granting, wish-fulfilling jewel, source of every single benefit and happiness in this world. To the incomparably kind Tenzin Gyatso, I beseech, may all your holy wishes be spontaneously fulfilled. For Lama Sopa Rinpoche, you uphold the subduer's moral way, who serve as the bountiful bearer of all, sustaining, preserving, and spreading Manjanath's victorious doctrine, who masterfully accomplished magnificent prayers honoring the three jewels. Savior of myself and others, your disciples, please, please live long. And for Lama Yeshe's reincarnation, Osohita, Venerable One, to use kindness exceeds that of all the conquerors for those wanderers in far off places, especially the West. Mindful of your loving concern for us and intentionally descending again into a family of a far distant land, we make this request. O Lama, please, please live long.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody, for coming.
Miffi, thank you so much. And we'll miss you next week, but we'll see you in 2 weeks. And
Yep. So it'll give you a chance to read also that Yangtze Rinpoche article, because it's just fantastic. There's a lot in there, and it's just, you know, it just keeps on giving. So take care. See you in a fortnight.
Thank you.
thank you so much. Be safe.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Miffi. Thank you, John. Thank you, Eloise.